Hey guys, this will be video 14 for the how to restore a 1981 Gibson E2 CMT for curly maple top tobacco burst Explorer. I think that's it. Loaded with very rare dirty fingers with the dual leads, and all of that worked out really well. In case I forget, I've only got these control knobs on here, Eric, obviously because just for the video purposes. But your speed knobs would not fit the spline, would not fit the splines. But nonetheless, it is what it is, and very rare project. The neck was number 7 of the very first day. In other words, this neck came from the very first day stamping of the 1981 007. And check out the video. I still got some little bit of wet sanding and hand wax work to do on the back, but the sides are hand waxed and buffed, wet sanded up to 1500 or 2000 grit. Yeah, it's 1500, and then top and backs and all that jazz, and top and sides and neck wet sanded, hand waxed up to this point right here. But because I was doing all the electrical work, the wiring harness, which had to be done in the body, I hadn't waxed this yet because I had it all taped off, and I had construction paper back here to protect the body. So it's very dull. I did wet sand this, I think, with maybe 1500 grit. I can't remember, but it has not been waxed yet. All right, let me stop talking about that. But nonetheless, beautiful guitar. I think this is a really cool image of the guitar right there. Yeah, that's awesome. When I was doing the last video and I was talking about some of that stuff, that was a really good video. I mean, that was a good image right there. Anyway, like I've always said, it's not guitar worship at all, and it's just craftsmanship, and enjoying doing really high quality work, and then overcome the hurdles of everything as well. But nothing. It turned out really good. And what I'm going to cover in this video is just a few of the. I probably. I don't know if that sustain is picking up, but as I told Eric, the sustain on this guitar is absolutely ridiculous. And I was playing it last night, and you'd hit a hardcore power chord, and it wouldn't stop. And in order to simulate the decay, I had to come in and start rolling off the volume real slow in order to simulate the normal decay of a normal guitar. So, as I told Eric, I said, that's a hell of a cool problem to have. So, anyway, she is an absolute mid-range monster, and these actives, see what I just said? These pickups are passive, but man, I'm telling you, they're so powerful. They sounded like active pickups, very articulate and incredible for real melodic work. I'm not a metal type player, but man, these pickups would probably be incredible for that as well. So, but real articulate melodic metal type playing. So, which to me is just that's classical guitar. Heavily distorted. So let's talk. Let me just dive in and talk about the guitar, and I'll do a quick flyby again in case I rambled too much on the video. The 81 Explorer CMT E2, very rare guitar. Got wildcat fur all over it, but I'm glad we went with the black rings, Eric. I think they look really tasteful and really good, and whatnot. And all your parts are over here to the side; they'll be included. When I was talking about the sustain just a little while ago, I would say probably 50% of that sustain, if not 25%, is probably related to this Shaler bridge, or the improvement, the 50% improvement, not the entire guitar. But man, the Shaler bridge, you can just feel, and it is a true made in Germany Shaler. So that's probably contributing to the tone as well. I got the TP6 on there, and I just got it kind of in the middle. I fooled with the tuners a little bit. Very well machined tuner screws. So I was really impressed with that, but I didn't really use them because I just wanted to set it up to where they're all level and beautiful, and then I tuned the guitar. But but I imagine if you're doing really hypersensitive tuning, that'd be a great feature to have. Um, Got the Shaler style strap locks. These are a brass. They're a brass strap lock. They're a replica of the Shaler, and that's what I like to use on all the guitars that I'm doing gold. And I think they are plated. They're probably lacquer, sprayed lacquer. They might tarnish a little bit over time, but they're really beautiful. They look good with the gold. Had to go with a deep well nut right here to make that function. But as you saw in the last video, if you remove this cover, uh, then you could still put the deep well nut back on it. And then you might want to put a washer. I don't know. I don't think, no, never mind. You wouldn't be able to get to it because the whole idea about the way this job was wired, if you wanted to remove that, you're going to have to desolder it to get it out. So you might be able to lift it up enough to get a washer under there. But in the last video, I know I had tightened it down a little bit. So it might not require it. No, it probably wouldn't. It would probably, because the deep well would just raise the three-way up enough that it should flush out. So never mind. Uh, anyway, beautiful guitar, really beautiful. I think that's a really good picture right there. Good image. Yeah, it's really tasteful. I might try to use that as the screenshot if I can get my hand out of the way. Let me move it real slow and then I'll be able to pause and capture one of those. Hopefully. Got the brass. And this is directional because of the switchcraft. And just remember, if you take this loose, just remember that it is directional, and you'll feel. I've got it set up right now, obviously for the optimum, you know, real easy install and removal. But if you for some reason remove this just out of curiosity or inspection, and you got it rotated, it'll still go in, but it's real tight. So if that happens, uh, just turn it 180 degrees, or just leave it alone, man. Plug it into your 412 or whatever it is you're playing, and enjoy the thing. Let's take these covers off a little bit, and let's talk about some real cool options on this CTS push pull potentiometer that I learned that even Eric wasn't aware of, and it's pretty cool that all you guys, I really appreciate chiming in. It was so helpful because I was really overthinking the whole wiring situation, but nonetheless, I'll shoot straight with you. I still don't really understand how it is that it's working, and we'll just leave it at that. I haven't signed it yet. Uh, I probably will sign it, but because I know Eric, you mentioned it was cool. Let me get this other cover off. But the reason I didn't, there's a possibility. Well, let me put it this way: if I sign it and there's a possibility you don't want the signature there, you just hit it with a little bit of lacquer thinner, and it'll be gone. That way, in the event you wanted it to really look like a historically accurate guitar, you've got the serial number on the headstock. So, is it a Gibson? Half of it. Well, probably no, more like 75% of it is a Gibson because those are Gibson pickups. That's a Gibson bridge. That's a Shaler. Um, they would have used switchcraft potentiometers. So, is it a Gibson? No, the body's not, but nonetheless, is what it is. But turned out really well. And when I was doing the wiring harness, obviously everything's in component form. Your switchcraft three-way is a component that is built on the table, and I regret not taking pictures of that because that was some really beautiful, like NASA approved solder work. It was really beautiful. It turned out really well. Then the output jack. Uh, Let me stop. I don't want to get too detailed because I really just need to get this video finished so I can get this thing shipped. But the output jack assembly was two vintage cloth wires, one yellow, one black. The black is the hot, the no, the black is the ground, and the yellow is the lead. So if you look in this cavity and you see a yellow wire, that is the lead wire from the output jack into the control cavity that then goes to the lug on the potentiometer on this side. So, and then you'll jump from there up to the three-way, and I always say feed power, but it's actually just making the connection, this connecting the circuit, because you're not giving it power, you're just drawing power. But nonetheless, if you see the yellow wire, you know that that's the lead wire. And then anything that is black cloth over here, that's going to be ground jumpers. So all three potentiometers are soldered together, and then somewhere in the circuit, all the shielding is grounded as well. So it might not be grounded here on this potentiometer just because it was getting so much freaking. Well, no, this one is. I take that back. Like this one is obviously grounded, soldered right there. And then this puddle right here, that always happens. It just kind of flattens out like a pancake, but that's like your primary grounding uh, location right there, where the little black ground wires are coming in and hitting right here. Then everything's kind of daisy chaining off of that. But nonetheless, turned out really good. It was very, very complex, but I failed to mention, I probably have in past videos, but I always verify your capacitors. There's a ground side and a hot side, so those are directional, believe it or not. And if you don't believe me, just do some research about guys that are pro electronics, or just anybody that's really savvy in this stuff. I used to not think it was important, but sure enough, once I started testing them, you'll notice those a little bit more hum if you get these flipped 180. So I put that negative and the positive on there to clarify that it was verified and it was wired accordingly. And when you plug it in, it's just whisper quiet. It's amazing. So, well, it's not amazing. It's no different than the last ones I built, but nonetheless, if you get those reversed and you've got some hum, then, well, if you're getting some hum, then there's a strong possibility your capacitor's reversed. Okay, so with that said, so the three-way is a component, it's fed in, the output jack is a component, and then the way I started this wiring was uh, I did the bulk of the wiring that I could with this potentiometer on the table, but then very quickly it had to go in the body because I was getting ready to join C1 and C2 to the coil taps from each pickup. Okay, so let's talk about that briefly, and then and that wildcat fur gets everywhere. And this was something that I didn't know, and neither did Eric. But when you have your C1 and your C2 on the outside, that would receive either one, either the neck or the bridge. For this particular pickup configuration, which has the dual leads coming off of each pickup, one's a coil tap and then one's the primary, or the which would be series. So either one of those would go in a C1 or C2, but then the wiring diagrams that I was studying basically just mentioned, yeah, just ground C3 through to the lug. I mean, to the side or the body, and then I'm gonna flip it upside down because it's in the body like this. But so what I did was I allowed the negative side of the capacitor to go into the three and then feed out the back, and then it rolled around the back, and then I soldered it on the side, on exactly on this side. So I got three. I got two birds with one stone. I got three grounded to the housing, and then the positive side obviously just goes in We'll say it looked like this right here, but it didn't. The positive side just went right into the middle lug, and then this was bent and allowed to go through three. However, what I didn't realize, we were both under the impression that as long as you ground three to the body, then once you make the connection at the C1 and the C2 connections from each wire from the pickup, then we were making the assumption that number three ground would be sufficient for both sides. It was not. And when I was first started playing the guitar, I was thinking, well, it's kind of subtle. I can, when I was in the neck position, I definitely, and I pulled up on the coil tap, then it was noticeable, but just kind of subtle because these are such incredibly high pickups. Um, this is the first vintage pickup that I've ever heard that sounded incredible, even when it was coil tapped. And that's the primary reason I'm doing this video. I've never liked a coil tapped vintage humbucker because it's not very hot around the 8 ohms, 9 ohms, or something like that. But these are like 15 or 16 ohms. So when you coil tap it, you're looking at over 8.5 ohms. So you still got a really, really hot single coil kind of. But with that said, so the neck pickup was coil tapping, sounded really beautiful. And then once I flipped down to the bridge, I noticed finally after I got to really listening to it, there was no difference at all. And then I realized, man, I guarantee what's going on here with this whole like double pole, double throw scenario. One side of the double pole, double throw is getting sufficient ground because once you pull up, you're grounding it out. And I was thinking that you're pulling up to activate something several videos back. That's where I was getting so confused. But when you pull it up, apparently you're grounding out the series side, which is confusing as hell. I still don't understand that, but that's irrelevant. But what I had to do was look at the double pole double throw layout, and I realized, okay, if I'm tapping into C2 and three, then that's on one side of the DP/DT switch. But I'm over here tapping into C1. Where shouldn't I need to be grounding? Probably at two or one. And sure enough, I was able to uh, push a like a real fine screwdriver down in there and make contact with number two, and then against the ground side of any of the wiring. And I had my tester as I was going through it, and nothing happened until I touched the ground to one. And then as soon as I touched the ground to one, I realized then I saw the voltage drop or the ohms drop in the bridge pickup from like 16 ohms down to roughly 8.5. And I realized, well, then there it is. All I had to do then was do a jumper wire. We'll just say that we had a wire right there going into three. All I had to do is do a real small jumper wire from three over to one, and boom, it continued the ground circuit, and it was immediate, and no hum. Didn't change anything because when I did the initial test to two, nothing happened. And just out of curiosity, I tested four, and nothing happened. But once I touched the one lug out of the DPD, or the one, yeah, like the lug on the DPDT um, layout, then there it was. So very, very, very strange. It's a very strange, and I read online where someone made a statement how archaic that was, and because I don't understand the circuit, I can't justify whether that statement has validity or if that's just someone, online making a statement about something they didn't understand. Because I got to tell you, uh, and I'm not just saying this to do the video or make the statement. These are the most powerful pickups I've ever played in my entire life. And as I shot Eric a message, I was like, man, these things, if you didn't know better, you would think these were active because they're so freaking hot. but then even once you coil tap, they're still powerful. And it just it was what was shocking was how uh, when it was series running either one pickup or both pickups, they had a certain level of power in the headphone, but then once I coil tapped, it did not drop. It just changed. It didn't drop in power. So it's not like if you were doing a performance that you coil tapped, all of a sudden it's like you got half guitar. It was really the call tap side of these humbuckers was keeping up with the series side of these humbuckers incredibly well. And that's where a lot of guys chimed in with good reason. And some of the past videos are like, oh man, I've never heard of, don't call tap the vintage humbuckers. They don't sound good. But because these are the Dirty Fingers ceramic magnets, hot as hell, they sound incredible. So whatever they were doing with this design, oh, and I'm so glad I'm thinking about this. This is so incredible. Um, Out of curiosity, I first made the statement that it looked like somebody had wrapped these with just traditional electrician's tape, and that spooked me because I was thinking, oh God, what has happened? Somebody's got in there and messed with these things. And I'll shoot straight with you. I was scared on the front end of working with them because I thought they might have been tampered with. But sure enough, I pulled the tape back, and what it revealed was each pickup, the coils were wrapped with copper, flat copper, and then off the side there was a little leg that went down, the copper leg, and it got soldered to the body, to the housing, the base or whatever it's called, the pickup base. And so I shot Eric an image. I was like, gee, you're not gonna believe what I just found. This is crazy, insane. And I made the statement like, well, at a minimum, they're probably gonna be whispered quiet. So a little, and I did take the picture. So if anybody wanted to see it, I'd be happy to send it to you. But it was amazing to discover what was going on behind the designs of these pickups. So there were a lot more than just grabbing up an old set of vintage pickups and changing the wiring so you can manipulate it. And that's probably where that guy made a statement. How archaic. Well, he made that statement probably based on the fact that he didn't understand the engineering behind the Dirty Fingers. And I guess these would be considered the Tim Shaw era pickup, ceramic magnets, hot, hot, hot with the dual leads. Okay, so I'm gonna stop. Let me check the time. 22 minutes. I know that's a lot of information, but I really learned an incredible lesson doing this renovation. And humbling is an understatement. Fear should be more in line with what I was really dealing with because I didn't know what I was doing, quite frankly, until everybody kind of chimed in, and even Eric's like, oh no man, trust me, you're just overthinking it. But if you're working with a set of these, you've got to do a double ground. You got to ground both sides of the double pole, double throw. And a lot of you guys out there watching this might be thinking, well, everybody knows that. Well, hell, I didn't. Okay, so now I do. But nonetheless, I love the CTS potentiometer, and as long as you got a needle point solder gun, really high quality solder gun, it soldered very quickly. I was relying on definitely a paste flux, and the solder tip already had just a little ball of solder on it. And then once I kissed it, boom, it was an immediate solder. And you can see these little solder lugs are microscopic, so it's an immediate solder job. Okay, very nice. Brass shaft, smooth, sound incredible. The tone on this thing, it's a phenomenal guitar. So okay, with that said, let's. I don't think there's any reason to talk about anything else other than just the component form of. Oh, I know what it was. Uh, all of the Eric's already aware of this, but the length of the leads was insane. How it was almost like they were already pre-cut and pre-tinned to go exactly to that location because they fed through the body perfectly. And then one wire went on this side up under that potentiometer, and then the other wire went on this side, but very flat on the bottom. And this is pretty important. The way I do my uh, layout, where I oppose these two potentiometers, it guarantees that if this lug right here, this is pretty important if you're kind of new to wiring, whatnot. But this is always going to be your for the Gibson guitar, and maybe the Gretsch, but this lug right here is always going to be grounded to the potentiometer. So if you flip this one, now it's going to be on this side. But what that allows is when all of this cluster of braided wire comes out of this cavity and you keep everything nice and low, you're staying well away from anything. Well, you're staying away from the input and the output lugs of the potentiometer. See, input and output lugs right here on your potentiometers. So as this braided wire comes in here, it doesn't matter if it bumps up against that lug. But if this braided wire came out right here and tried to go over this for some reason, you greatly run the risk of bumping into that lug. But over here, all the grounding is on this side. So even that braided wire that runs up under that lug, if it kissed or made contact with the bottom side of the lug, the bottom side of the lug right here, then it's not going to hurt anything because that's the ground side. Okay, so and also by rotating this, it allowed me to after finished all the wiring to there at the very end, put a flat edge under there and then roll that capacitor down, fold it forward because it was sticking up, a little bit high. And I don't know if I covered in the last video, but I had made the engineered assumption that the long shaft was going to work, and even contacted my supplier and he said, "Oh yeah, it's about 3/4 of an inch," and that ain't the case. What I'm talking about is from this nut to the flat side back. He said, but it requires roughly about a 1 inch depth. That's not the case. You need a minimum of about 1 1/8 clearance. I can't pick the damn thing up. And also, there was something strange going on. This thing's a little bit taller as it projects up out of the potentiometer body. So what I had to do is I had to order a 3/8 inch shaft, and I had, before I did all this harness work, I had to route that top down to I think it's about 3/16 of an inch thick in that area right there. But it was perfect because it created a little drop down for the wiring to drop in and just stay away from any other wiring that was going on. As I told Eric, this is the most complex harness I've ever done, just because of the newness of never working with the rare pickups, but also because of the fact it's so confined. Everything has to be really thought out. The routing of the wiring was the most complex job I'd ever done. So in hindsight, I wouldn't do this. I would have said, "Man, there's no way in hell we're going to do this. That's going to take forever to do this, and let's just go ahead and turn this into like a large cavity of some sort." And I think even Eric and I had considered that on the front end, but we changed gears and went with this. So I say that to say this: I would do it again now because I know it works and the routing of everything. But it took me quite a while to figure out how to route those wirings. So. If you had to service it, then you could, because I did just that. Once I realized I didn't have a ground on my bridge side, then I was able to, loosen the nut or take the nut and face washer off and raise that CTS all the way up about 80%, just enough so it was real easy to solder. But if not, I would have still been able to have folded this capacitor up and back, and I could have shot it on a 45-degree angle. It would have been tricky, but it would have worked. Okay, so hope I didn't spend too much time talking about that, but it's one of those things where, as I mentioned, more fear than anything because of not knowing. I'm the type of person, I hate not knowing what I'm doing and then trying to rely on online information to figure stuff out. But nonetheless, we got there, and what was incredible is soon as this is probably the most important thing ever is you're doing your component is you're building this component here and you're building this component down here, the output jack, and then you're beginning to solder everything. I was literally every time I would do a solder, I would test the circuit to make certain that nothing was grounding out anywhere. Because one thing I learned, I used to build marine engines and do mobile marine service work. I had a little company down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That was originally, this channel was called Tiki Hut Machine Shop, and I'd go out to a boat and fire up the camera and rebuild a 454 engine in a boat, or either service it. And 99% of the time, the issues that the boat would not crank, or there was issue, it was always a ground problem. 99% of the time, it was just a ground issue. So I learned my lesson doing the marine engine building and marine engine electrical, where as I'm building this component, I was verifying there was no ground problem going on here. And then in the event I got this guitar built and I plugged in and it was dead, well, I'd already verified that the three-way harness component was exceptional. The output jack harness was exceptional. So if there was an issue, it was not going to be right here. So, as I used to always tell my clients, a lot of times it's just we're processing through what it's not in order to find what it is, if that makes sense, like the problem. And what was incredible is as soon as it plugged in, it was whisper quiet and it was a guitar. So it was really not that I questioned my ability to do solder work, but just in the event there's like a frayed wire from this old vintage pushback wire, in case there was some sort of frayed ground wire down here kissing something, or like especially on that CTS. Man, if you had a funky frayed wire down here, maybe reaching up and hitting, kissing the edge of the C1, and you can't see it because it's all covered up. So that's what I meant by it was really important to verify each time you did an operation to make certain that it was actually correct. So anyway, um, I'll shoot straight with you. I don't really like doing wiring primarily because I'm not fast at it. I'm good enough to read the schematics and pull it off, but it's just what I just said. I'd rather just be building the guitars. So anyway, I hope I have no idea what I've even talked about on the front end. I know I did a bit of a flyby, so I'll cover this briefly again. TP6 tune. I've already talked about that enough. Okay, let's talk about the actual build. This is something Eric would need to know if he's going to take the guitar apart ever. When I put the I don't even know what those things are called, strap locks. When I put them on, I drilled the hole. It's mahogany. I dropped a little bit of a tight bond glue in there in order to lubricate the threads, but also to guarantee it never backs out. And also, is when you're tightening that screw down, as soon as it kisses the bottom, well, then you can stop, because then the tight bond will then, glue everything together. So if you ever need to remove this, all you do is just take a solder gun, just push down in there for just a second or two until you just smell the burn, or the heating up, and then that screw will just immediately come out. But if you attempt to just take a screwdriver and take these off, Eric, uh, strong possibility it could snap the head off. Wouldn't be that big of a deal, because then you'd have to take the solder gun, heat up the shaft of what's sticking out, and then back it out with a set of pliers. But anywhere you see a connection just that you want to remove, just know that you probably need to take a solder gun and kiss it and just warm it up a little bit. Then everything will come apart. I did get the 9/32 inch bit for these two 7mm holes, and got that taken care of this morning, and these went in, and it was beautiful, beautiful. These pressed in by hand, but then right there at the bottom, they needed me to take the hammer and just go tap, tap, and then they were incredibly precise. However, rather than doing tight bond, I used nitrocellulose lacquer in that raw hole, and then I did the nitrocellulose lacquer inside that machined location, and then pressed the anchors in. So those are kind of like nitrocellulose lacquer glued in. If you wanted to remove them for some strange reason, they might break loose with ease, but nonetheless, hit them with a solder gun and then they'll come right out. But they're not sloppy at all. Is because I sent Eric. Um, well, this would be good for you guys as well. This is what you're shooting for. When you're building the guitar, you want to be able to put the straight edge up against the bass side of the neck, and then you should be able to come down here, and the straight edge should land perfectly on the edge of the saddle here and on the edge of the saddle there. That's an engineered center line. And what is this guitar? Not 99%, 100% spot on, true as true can get on either side. So, what is that? That is an engineered trapezoidal path that is absolutely perfect. And that's what I meant by Eric, because I started out with a 17 64th inch drill bit, but it was too tight. And if I had have hammered these anchors in, as I told Eric, it probably wouldn't have split anytime soon. But give it a few weeks of incredibly dry weather, and there's a possibility that this quarter sawn maple top would have split. So it felt good to wait a day, get the correct bit, and then get that drilled just so that they just would basically would press in with almost thumb pressure. So I give you a lifetime warranty. This top is never going to split. Okay. And now, at finishing the conversation about removing things, the anchors for the actual tailpiece. I've already covered this in the past videos, but they're cut with a 1/2 inch drill bit, obviously on the drill press. But when those are, I hammer those in. They do have the spline as well, but I always epoxy the anchors in. So it would be impossible to remove these anchors unless you put a pretty hot solder gun on them until the point where you started smelling things melt, like smelling lacquer. Then they should slide out with ease. I know Eric's not going to be doing that type of stuff, but just know that if something happened and you had to have future work done, everything, the only thing that's not glued together are the little face screws here. And then obviously these won't be, these actually have Renaissance wax in them. And I think I might have done that as, no, I did not do it on here. Didn't need it. So, because I didn't want it to be too soft. You want those to have a little bit of strength. So let me stop talking. This is just all a waste of conversation. But that was really important because that's the type of thing where some might say, I think I'm going to change those strap locks to something new or modern. Make certain that you hit that screw with a solder gun, or very likely it would break off in there. Wouldn't be that big of a deal because you could just move right next to it and put the next one in. But, we don't want that if we can avoid it. All right, so it's a guitar. It's ready to ship, and that will be taking place today. The only thing I have not done was I've got the intonation set, but I have not cut the slots yet. I'm about to cut the slots, but because I'm going to say this neck has a little bit of a problem right here because it's fretting out just a little bit. The client already mentioned, well, if anything, I'll let off the nut and let it have a little bit more forward relief. But I don't want to cut this slot too deep on the low E, because then that will exponentially worsen matters, because the low E is the one that's kind of fretting out around the 7th position a little bit. But only because I've got it set pretty darn low. And as I told Eric, I said, I hear what you're saying about being kind of heavy-handed, but let me set it up so that if you want to do real sweet chordal stuff, real jazzy, well, the guitar's easy to play. But if you want to do some heavy-handed, hardcore power stuff, then all you got to do is come in here to this truss rod nut that is currently 1/2 turn, torqued. Then per your taste, just kiss it off a little bit, take a little bit of pressure off, and wait 10 hours and see where it goes. Because here's what happened last night. I set it up last night, tuned it to E flat, and everything was playing really well. Came back this morning and it had dropped in tone. What does that tell you? It lets you know that where I had the truss rod set, it still was creeping forward a little bit, but it had settled. So what did I do? I left it alone. I left it right where it was, and then I just did all the final intonation work, and it's tuned. So it's holding tune right now. So I say that to say this: if you do need more forward relief, Eric, then just, as you already know this, then just start taking this nut off. Because I know I'm bringing this up because I capoed roughly around the 7th fret earlier, and everything up here feels incredible. I don't have my glasses on. A little bit of buzz right there. Everything I'm seeing is a blur. It frets out just a little bit when you dig into it. Beautiful guitar. Absolutely incredible. So plays incredible, and trust me, we're splitting hairs here. If this was hanging in a music store and you walked up and picked it up and played it, you probably would be blown away by it. The general consumer. So, and what was really cool last week, I got a phone call from a buddy that owns a really high quality pawn shop and music store in my hometown here. He deals in really high quality guitars, and I went out and set up a 1999, I think it was 99, a Gibson Les Paul Burst Classic, and it was really cool. I got to spec that whole guitar, and based on that, it was really awesome. After I got that guitar set up, because he had a problem with like the 13th fret that we cleaned up and got under control. Well, after I did the setup on that guitar, it required 1/2 turn on the single adjustable truss rod in order to get it exactly where he wanted it. And it was really cool because even he made the, I think his name is John, because I know his dad's name is John. I went to high school with his dad, super cool guy. But he mentioned that he liked a little bit higher action with a little bit of forward relief. And I was thinking, well, that's exactly like what Eric and I have been talking about. So, say that to say this: after I set up that 99 Burst Les Paul, it had the truss rod was basically torqued back 1/2 turn, and the bridge action was exactly where I have this one, and it had a real sweet recurve where where you can test it by pressing roughly around the 14th to the 15th, press down on the first, and then come up here and just see is there a little bit of space under that. And on this guitar right now, it does have forward relief, just ever so slightly more than I like, but because of this, there's a fret somewhere in here that has a bit of an issue. But as I told Eric and I said in the early videos, there's no fret left. These, I think these are called the fretless wonder or whatever they're called. There's no material left to start messing with, and if you screw one up, you're gonna have to replace it. So see, it's fretting out when I dig into it. But as far as playing the guitar, it plays fine. It plays really good. So, and it's probably like that potentiometer and those wiring harness. I'm probably just overthinking it. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to try to just stop talking. And I really appreciate you guys that have followed this series, chiming in and helping me build this thing, because it's been a bit of a bear from time to time. But it's a beautiful, beautiful guitar. And because we kept it all historically accurate, it's a very good investment as well. And I think we did everything that we could to absolutely maximize the value of that very, very rare neck. And Eric does have the truss cover, so it'll be really cool. And covering it from a 10,000-foot view, I tried to leave as much of the worn-in neck visible as possible, but transition into a beautiful darker tone. I don't know what this light is showing, but when you're looking at this guitar in the room, it's pretty dark and smoked out right here. But then once you're playing it, you're truly seeing some of the old maple where it's worn through. But what does it feel like? It feels like a $25,000 jazz nitro finish, just slick as glass, very thin. It's very thin, but it feels incredible. So, and I know it took about a month longer to build because of that whole dry time. But man, is it ever worth it? Because it just, it just is. It feels incredible. Slick as glass. It looks like it's 40, 45 years old. It's got a few little nicks and I call them build marks and stuff like that, but I left them in there. I think it's got a small dent right there. It's got a small divot right there. I might drop a little bit of nitro in that, but for the most part, I probably relicked it a little bit, playing it and enjoying the guitar. Bumping into the table here and there and whatnot. But as far as the neck, there's no there's no build marks there at all. It feels incredible. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys dropping in. And the next video will be getting Ed's 58 gold top, Ed's 58 gold top P90 Explorer back in video. But what Ed doesn't know is on the side, I've been working on that guitar and I've already got the neck roughed out, and I've built the second body, and I've already built the maple cap that is ready to glue down. So, and I hadn't talked to Ed in like 2 or 3 weeks or so. So if you're watching this video, Ed, your guitar has actually been in production as well. While this one's sitting on the side waiting on parts to come in or stuff like that, I would devote time for that guitar. And I haven't touched any of my other guitars. But there's also another guy, I think his name is Kai, wants me to do some Explorer work as well. So, but I think he's a builder and has built a Bartlett replica, and beautiful pictures that he sent of his Bartlett 59 burst. But he wants me to do some component work for him as he's building a guitar very similar to this. But his is a 76 replica. Anyway, so Kai, if you're watching this video, I'll get in touch with you as soon as I get this baby shipped and get back on point. But obviously, Ed's guitar is going to be taking precedence next. But since we're still in the Explore replica world, it'll be very easy to stay on that track and do your work as well. And quite frankly, you may actually want the body that we decided not to use for Ed's guitar. You're probably not even aware of that, so let me just stop talking. But again, and there's no sense in talking about this, but Eric, if you're still watching the video, all these parts will be coming back to you. All of the cases that you shipped everything in, and the rings, and there's your speed knobs that unfortunately were apparently metric. And I've got it set up. I didn't have any Diodario, but I had a set of Elixir 10 to 52. And that was bizarre because I had it set up originally with 10 to 46. And oh man, did I ever love it. It played incredible. These are a little bit heavy for my liking, but that's what the client wants. But the last 24 hours, it's had the 10 to 52s on it. And that's what I'm about to cut this slot. And I did set the intonation earlier. That's what it's intonated to. It required that the saddles drop down just a little bit. So if you ever switch over to 10 to 46, it'll probably require that you shorten the saddle speaking length up a little bit. But you probably already know that stuff. And the only thing that happened, if this is the only failure, was the high Elixir string broke, and I had to put a Diodario 10 on there. But let's see if it'll pick up. It's 100%. It's a beautiful guitar. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate you dropping in and going once, going twice, looking at the table. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.